What's up, Jay Cutler TV fans? My name is Xavier Wills. I'm the host of Desktop Bodybuilding, a fellow YouTube channel out there covering bodybuilding news, bodybuilding history, doing interviews like this and contest coverage as well. So if you guys are interested, you can head over to my channel, subscribe, hit the notification bell button, all that good stuff. But in this interview of your four-time Mr. Olympia, Jay Cutler, I delve into questions that Jay hasn't really been asked too much before. And this is a shortened interview down to about 45 minutes from my hour and a half interview that I did on Desktop Bodybuilding, but I've got all the best bits in this one. But honestly, the whole interview is great. So if you're interested in watching a bit more after this one, head over to Desktop Bodybuilding and check that out, and also subscribe while you're over there as well. But anyway, guys, make sure you subscribe to Jay Cutler TV. He's offering some great stuff, him and Dave Belay, so make sure you get on that. And anyway, guys, I hope you enjoy this video. Welcome back to Desktop Bodybuilding, and today I'm joined by my personal idol growing up getting into bodybuilding. I'm joined by four-time Mr. Olympia, Jay Cutler. Jay, welcome to Desktop Bodybuilding, and thank you so much for doing this interview.
Finally, great to catch up and get this interview done, and I think it's the ideal time for it, and I appreciate you taking the time to reach out to me continuously, and of course following my channel and understanding what I've been doing lately. So that's really cool.
Now, what's your morning routine look like? Because I saw you put up a post, I've got it right here, just the other night on your story. You said, every night before I sleep, I take time to reflect on so many blessings I have and am so grateful for each day and every day. And you said, upon waking each day, it's the beginning of another chapter of my journey. Believe in yourself. So you're putting out, obviously, that positivity. Now, do you have a set morning routine that you follow every day? Because I want to try to get into something that I haven't really heard too much about when I've heard you interviewed before. I've heard more about the, what do you think of your 2001 versus, other Olympias and whatnot, but I don't hear too much about your actual mindset and what actually drives you. So do you have a set morning routine?
I actually do, and I wake up between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m., no matter what time I go to bed. And that's just my age. That's where, as you get older, you seem to sleep a little less, even though I went through a crazy routine when I was training for all the titles and the trophies you see behind me. But what I like to do is wake up between 5 and 7. I usually get up and I have, a couple glasses of water. I start to, get my mind working a little bit. Sometimes I'll dive into emails, but sometimes I'll go right to doing cardio. I always do fasted cardio. So whether I start right away after drinking some water, I might take a little tiny bit of pre-workout just to get my head a little better. And then what I'll do is, whether or not I do that cardio right away, I jump right into a couple emails that are important that I know, like I woke up through the night and I was thinking, oh, I got to do this or that. I go right to the cardio session, and that cardio session is not strictly for trying to stay in great shape, because I always believe in fasted cardio if you're trying to lean down, whether you're getting ready for a show or just trying to lose weight. I use it to kind of set my head for the day. So when I walk, either outside or I have all my elliptical or my stairs in the garage, I pick about 20 to 40 minutes each morning, and I kind of set my head for the day and go through, okay, this is what I'm going to go through. Sometimes I'll do phone calls if it's absolutely necessary, but I try to push everything past 8 o'clock in the morning so I can do my cardio, set my mind for the day, get a kind of a game plan in my head. I cook my breakfast, which is the same breakfast I ate for the past 15 years, pretty much. And then what I'll do is I'll handle a little business, and then I usually right now I'm trying to work out. So I'll eat one meal, and then I'll probably within an hour after eating that meal, I work out if I'm not stuck on phone calls. And then after that, it's just conference calls or whatever, head to my office. But normally, if I was not in quarantine, I would probably train later in the day at a gym, like down the street or whatever, Lift Factory or LVAC or EOS. I train at a different gym every single day, which is the ideal thing in Las Vegas. And when I moved here in 2002, that was the cool aspect about Las Vegas. It was 24 hours, but more importantly, I could train like legs at a certain gym. I could train chest at a certain gym, do arms at a certain gym, because there was always one gym specific for each body part that I like to train at. And as you see, a lot of bodybuilders migrated to Vegas. We saw Dennis Wolf come, Gustavo Bedell was here, Sean Ray was here in the past, Paul Dillette, Craig Titus was here. So there's a lot of bodybuilders that have come in and out of here, and the Vegas lifestyle, it kind of fits that whole training aspect, although people get little off track sometimes with the party scene also.
Yeah, for sure. Now, through your career, like I remember actually watching a video or hearing you speak on a podcast, and you were saying that you used to go back and watch your actual workouts that you were putting up on YouTube. I think through that Swole Monkey production
Yeah.
one that you was putting up, and you said you used to watch it like game tape. You used to watch your technique, and you go, oh, "Okay, I could do that a little bit different or whatever." You don't really hear of guys doing things like that, and the amount of therapy that you used to get like hours and hours every single week, on different therapies and whatnot. Now, I don't hear that much of guys doing things like to that extent these days. And I mean, there's still probably lazier guys, back in the 90s, like I've heard Paul Dillette wasn't as, strict on certain things, and with training, he didn't train as hard and whatnot. I don't really know that, but do you think you see less of I suppose, that really hardcore hours of posing, hours of therapy and all that sort of stuff these days? Because I just don't see it as much as I did when you and Ronnie were battling it out.
100%. But then you have the guys that kind of break that mold. And I can say like Sergio for the Arnold Classic this year was an example of like this guy just worked and worked and worked and worked. I mean, brought Cormier in to kind of watch over him. He posed the hell out of him. He learned to pose better. He worked with Brad Rowe in the new newbie machine that really, gave the best out of the workouts. He lived in San Diego, put himself in an atmosphere. He's from Chicago. He lived in Venice for a while. He really kind of set himself up and really kind of left nothing to chance. He finished fifth, which I think was amazing showing, right? Fifth place he got, yeah. Right? Yeah. See, like I see that as like, and Dexter's the same kind of way. Like Dexter, he moved all the way from Jacksonville. He trains under Charles Glass. Like that guy just breathes bodybuilding. Whereas with me, remember, I wasn't working with the ultimate genetics of like a Flex Wheeler or even, let's say, Ronnie Coleman. So I had to take advantage of, okay, I need to do the therapy, keep my muscles pliable, keep the fascia released. I would spend 6 hours a week. You're right. I would bring people into Las Vegas to train with me to make sure that my intensity levels were altered through my preparation so I wouldn't get bored. I didn't have a trainer. I worked with Chris Aceto or Hani Rambod through my career, mostly Chris. Hani was towards the end, but those people were just from a distance saying, hey, this or do that with the diet protocols, not, okay, you need to train like this. Hani did help me a little bit, and Chris, of course, put his input, but I really didn't need a lot of help training. I trained my ass off. I would train twice a day, 4 times a day sometimes. I would train, in the morning, middle of the night. I switched things around so it wasn't stagnant. But I did start shooting in 2008, the Jay Cutler TV videos, and I would, have the guys film my workouts so I could see exactly how, especially like the back training, how my lats were engaging, and, my positioning when I was bench pressing or doing shoulder presses, like where the angle was and where the dumbbells were rising. I was doing mostly free weights. And it worked well for me. I mean, that's what made me great. And that's what made people like yourself realize, okay, there's more than just going to the gym and pushing weights. And I wanted to show the correct way. And now being retired, it'll be, 6-7 years now that I stepped away from competitive bodybuilding. I feel great. Like I can still go to the gym and I can still do all those movements. I'm not training heavy. Like I mentioned, the diet's still intact, but my goal is different now. I'm just trying to get a good workout. A lot of it's for my mind now. But I was very motivated through those workouts, and I was very precise. And I think a lot of like ball players and whatnot watch game tapes, right? I consider the bodybuilding thing the same way. We have to watch how fast we're going through the motions. When we squat, how deep do we go? I used to have people film me because I always felt like I was going like totally parallel to the floor. But when I look at the tape, they say there was actually more that I could actually go down and engage a little more in the hamstring and glutes, or, focus more on the quad, and whether I was doing a front squat or a back squat, or I was doing lunges with a barbell or dumbbells. Like I looked at the level that I would actually go down and really engage the other muscles. And that really gave me the opportunity for that. And I would always judge my workouts, how sore I was in the recovery process. And that's the thing is, I was a once a week body part trainer, where you got someone like Phil Heath or Ronnie Coleman who trained body parts twice a week. I realized I could not recover. I tried to train like that. I was a really crazy high volume trainer. So a minimum of 20 sets per body part. And it just worked for me. And that's the way I still train. I just don't go as heavy.
Yeah, and I was actually going to get into your training volume versus high intensity. And were you a guy that ever went to the high intensity, tried it out, and it just didn't work?
I love the Dorian Yates training style, like the beyond failure training and all that. But I saw him get injured, and I just didn't feel comfortable on the heavy weights. And, when I first started training, I was like any 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid. I had this big challenge with myself because I had the crazy legs, and I was squatting. I think I squatted almost 700 when I was 19 years old.
Wow.
But that's the problem. I was trying to get 1 repetitions with this weight, and I kept straining muscles. And then I realized, okay, if I want a lengthy career in bodybuilding, I can't push these kind of weights continually, workout after workout. It's going to be damaging. I was staying too lean at the time. I mean, I was 240 by the time I was 20, and I was pretty lean. So for me, I needed to be smarter. And that's how I kind of handled the training. So I tried training lower repetitions, but I felt that the 8 to 12 repetition range always seemed to be best for me.
Yep. And when you actually go through, like, just say you're doing, biceps, for example, or chest or whatever, and then you do your first exercise, you're doing 4 sets on that. It seemed like you pyramided your weights up generally. Was that first set just to get a little bit of a feel in there, then the next set, a little bit more intensity, and then you slowly build up? And do you go to failure on your last set or close to it? Is that normally the way it works?
It's funny. It's funny because people say warm up, but I think that, like, once you do the first exercise, you're warm, right? Yeah. So you can't really call it your warm up sets. I call them feel sets. So I'll do 2 sets when I jump into the first movement, and I call those feel sets, and then I'll pyramid up after those feel sets. So I'll do, like, say if I'm doing, bench press or whatever, and I'm on a hammer strength machine, I'll do 2 plates aside. I'll do 12, 15 reps for 2 sets. And then I pyramid up. So I count 3 sets after that. So I try to do 3 working sets per exercise always.
Yeah.
But then as I move to the second movement, say if I'm doing chest and I started with incline hammer and I'm going to do a fly movement, I'll go right into 3 sets and I'll pyramid the weight up every set. Now the last set will be the heaviest set, but I'll still focus on doing 8 to 12 repetitions. And I'll pick usually 1 out of the 6 or 7 different movements I do through the whole routine, where I'll go kind of to failure depending on if I'm training with someone or not, but where the burn is a little more. But I think with the volume training, you can't go to failure every single exercise, or you will burn down. Okay, so, and a lot of times I didn't train with training partners other than when I was training for the competitions, because I think a lot of guys came because they wanted the clout too, right? Say I'm training with Jay Cutler, and, it's kind of a big deal. And, I always traveled with an entourage. If you follow some of my DVDs and that kind of stuff, I always had kind of people around. So, but it was just more eyes. And, I did have people that helped me change the weights because I did move some heavy weights. But I remember telling the partners, I said, you can come train with me, but I'm not spotting you and I'm not changing the weight. So if you have to drop the weight, you need to set it back to what it was with me. And the reason I didn't like training with trainer partners, I'll be honest, the first time I ever said it on film, is because I would sweat so bad. And if I wasn't wearing like a headband or something, I didn't want to have to lean over someone and, I was sweating all over the place because, I mean, when I trained, it was like little rest time. My rest time's only 45 to 60 seconds. So for me, like, I needed to, like, build the intensity between sets and not be thrown off by trying to drag the weight off someone else, because no matter what, when you train with someone like me, you're always going to try to either do the same weights or do more. And unfortunately, you're not conditioned for that unless you're doing it day in, day out. And no one was training, I felt, as hard as I was on a daily, because why would they? I mean, I was the one fighting for the best title in the world. So when you came in and trained with me, if you weren't training in that mindset, like, you couldn't touch my intensity levels or, how I really trained. Don't get me wrong. There's guys that were stronger, but my endurance was like a machine. It was over and over and over. It's like I got stronger as the workout, where people start to die down. And that's why it demanded so much food. And I mean, the amount of calories I ate even on a contest diet were just extraordinary compared to what people did or still do.
And you were a guy that I remember watching your DVDs saying that you used to eat 1,000 grams of carbs in a day regularly in off season. Is that was that pretty normal for you through the whole off season, or did you have periods where you just like pulled the food back? What was the go with that?
I'll be honest. I mean, a lot of days I would eat 800 grams of carbs on a contest diet.
Wow.
I would eat more as I trained for the shows. I would eat 7 meals. And I would have huge carb meals for breakfast, a meal before and after training. Off season, I ate as much food as I possibly could, and the majority was carbohydrates. Definitely try to shoot for 1,000 grams of carbs, whether I drank half and I ate half. I would drink a lot of like powdered Gatorade, or, when I was under contract with Muscle Tech, I actually used Cell Tech a lot. That was a great thing for me to get fullness. I'd eat a lot of pasta. Pasta was a good way to get the calories in. If you ask me, hey, what's the best way to get big? Chicken and pasta, man. Chicken and pasta every meal. That's how I used to, and I didn't get fat from that. So that's how I would get that food in. But I would force feed it. Don't get me wrong. I was not sitting there saying, oh, I want to eat, 200 grams of carbs every meal. That wasn't my goal. But that's what I realized I had to do in order to maintain the 300-pound off-season physique. And even when I dieted down to maintain the 280 until I dropped water and competed in the, 255 to 270 range. A lot of shows I was like different weights, depending if Ronnie was there or not. So, there's a broad range, and, every physique was different. Every physique was different that I competed and won and lost shows, but I was always playing with what the best of that diet process was in order to compete, at the highest level.
Yep. Now, you've been so active post-career in bodybuilding. Now, some guys, I don't know if they're soured by the industry, but they literally finish their career and they step away and you don't really hear from them again. You've been the total opposite of that. You've been going around to expos. You've been really an ambassador for bodybuilding, which, I thought you'd still be active in the industry, but maybe not to this level, because obviously your success and everything you've done outside of bodybuilding as well. Did you ever consider actually walking away from the industry and walking away from bodybuilding and just focusing your energies on real estate or some other sort of business?
I balanced the two, to be honest. My true love is bodybuilding. I wanted to be a bodybuilder since I was 12 years old. I feel blessed to be able to win the Mr. Olympia. I come from a town of 6,000 people, super small, like I mentioned, youngest of 7 kids. So for me to achieve what I did is kind of unheard of. I didn't have everything just handed to me. I wasn't born in California and I wasn't raised around it. None of my brothers and sisters trained. So I kind of had to find my own path, and my lifelong goal was to, once I got to that level, was to win an Olympia title, and I won 4. Really wanted more. But now I realize that I stand a place in bodybuilding, and people rely on the motivation. And, for me to be able to change people's lives, if I could change 4 people in a year's life, like take them away from either doing drugs or, diabetes, like overeating, or, people that have, an eating problem where it's, they undereat. Those kind of things are motivational for me. And I'm kind of surprised because, I was a professional bodybuilder by trade, and it doesn't have to do with necessarily some things that people strive for. Not everyone wants to be the next Mr. Olympia. When I met you when you were 17 competing, you probably had aspirations like, how far can I take this? But now look how adaptive you've become, and you've become a voice of fitness, right? But your interest is there. I mean, your goal may have changed in that amount of time. How many years ago was that? It was over 13 14
years ago. Long time, yeah.
So, and as a kid, and you meet someone like me, you're kind of shy, right? Because you don't know what to really say, what's right or wrong. And I try to make people comfortable, and I realize that I'm just a kid with a dream still inside a man's body, right? Because when I go to these shows and I watch, and I sat at the front row of the Mr. Olympia last year, and I watched these guys compete, and I actually caught myself for a minute. I leaned over to Angie, and I'm like, man, how do these guys look like that? And she's like, Jay, didn't you do this at like the best level for a long time? And I'm like, oh yeah. You know what I mean? And I'm just so impressed by the physiques now, because I know the hard work and the dedication, and unfortunately people don't understand unless you're inside of the business to know what these guys go through to achieve that look, to have that size and that condition factor together. And I'm a fan of it, and I don't ever want to walk away. I mean, I hope I can be involved forever. I promote 4 contests with my name. I have the branding in the business. I'm, still sponsored and partnered with a lot of brands. I have the supplements. But I do the real estate and I do all the other stuff outside, like all the other business ventures, and I try to balance it, but it's challenging, man. I want to be the best, like 46-year-old guy, retired guy, you know? So I'm kind of like competing with myself. Like, you know, I was on Instagram last night, my shirt off training in my garage, you know, and people are like surprised, like, man, you still look pretty good. And, you know, I look pretty good for not being like full-time what I'm doing. It's just kind of like a part-time gig for me, but I love it still. Like, I still wake up every day like, man, I can't wait to work out today. Yeah. So that's the cool part about it. I still enjoy it a lot. Maybe I'll wake up in 5 years and that's not what my goal will be anymore, right? But as you know, I don't have children. I have my dogs, and I still choose to live the lifestyle. I mean, I sit behind these walls in this office. I'm looking at all the awards right now, and it's like, if you didn't, you know, you'd never know a bodybuilder lived in this house until you came in this room. People are shocked when they come over here and do work or whatever else. And they realize, oh man, you're that guy. Like, they don't know. And even meeting me face to face, let's see the pictures of me and Ronnie. They're like, oh, you're that guy. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I'm still motivated and I still love it.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned how obviously, you know, when I was young, 17, I was nervous to obviously meet you, and which absolutely I was, you know, like you don't know what to say, you don't know what to do. And I actually remember when I first started doing the bodybuilding media side of things, I actually got an interview with Mil Sarchev. And I only did the audio at that point. I was just doing podcasts. And I remember clicking record on that, and I was literally shaking. My hands were shaking, trembling. And now I'm talking to, you know, you are like, you know, my main idol in bodybuilding. You're the guy I followed. When I got into the sport, I was only 15 or so. It was when you and Ronnie were really battling each other 15 years ago. And I was like, you know, I remember being on a forum and sitting there and clicking the constant refresh thing because I didn't have a live stream just to see who won. And then I was like, Ronnie won. I was like, damn. Like, and that was around 2004. And it's very surreal to be in this situation now where I'm actually interviewing my idol and I'm not shaking, I'm not nervous, you know, which is actually sort of a weird thing. You sort of, I suppose, adapt to it. And I suppose for a lot of people out there that are scared to do things, that's sort of something that they can, like, while they're going through this time, they can sort of push themselves to do something else. And this has been a massive, you know, motivator for me already, you know, like actually hearing and talking to you, not just hearing, I suppose, an interview of you with someone else, that you can actually push past. And, you know, I think sometimes I limit myself a little bit in terms of, you know, I get to a certain level and I chill, you know, but hearing your story, it has definitely made me want to push past and go further with the channel and everything else that I'm doing as well. But,
let me ask you though, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, it's cool.
Were your aspirations when you were competing in the contest to be a professional bodybuilder?
Yes. Well, I think I always had that dream. I remember watching the Ironmans and when they used to live stream them on bodybuilding.com, and I would watch those and go, you go check yourself out in the mirror when you're a teenager and go, yeah, I'm not there yet. And I was always hoping I'd be able to get to that level at some stage. You know, I was, you know, natural obviously as a teenager and thinking, you know, maybe if I did do stuff in the future in my 20s or whatever, maybe I'd blow up and explode. Wasn't to happen, obviously, and I've had a few health issues and stuff and whatnot as well. And the men's physique thing sort of came around, and I suppose I was not falling out of love, but falling out of having that aspiration of being a really high level, I guess. And then the men's physique thing came around, and actually Aaron Singman, who you're friends with as well, he had a Redcon 1 readiness trials. So it's like a challenge, and you win $50,000 if you win first place. And I thought, okay, well, I've just been trying to have a baby. My physique doesn't look that great right now. I'm a bit smaller than normal, a bit fatter than normal. I can transform pretty quick. And I did that. And I got a few weeks into it and everyone's like, oh, are you competing? Are you competing? And I was like, oh, I may as well give men's physique a go. And it's not, you know, men's physique isn't my main love, but to get in shape and to try to look really good. I mean, some of these guys look fantastic now. So I think it's a good division. As much as I didn't like it at first, now I'm competing in it. So it sort of gives me that extra bit of motivation.
Who's your men's physique idol then? You have to have one guy that, I don't know if people compare themselves, like the shorter guys used to look at Lee Priest and be like, oh, Lee Priest is my favorite. Then they look at, like I looked at Dorian Yates and I said, oh, that's my idol, because we had similar physiques. Like we weren't super small waisted and we had, you know, wide shoulders or whatever. So who is your inspirational men's physique guy?
I guess in terms of physique that I match up more with, it's more like a Raymond Edmonds or something, because he's a bit taller, doesn't have the crazy thick...
He just won this year. He just won his first one, right, this year?
Yeah, exactly. So I was really happy to see that, because I was like, okay, well, my physique resembles him more than like an Andre Ferguson or a Brandon Hendrickson. I think Andre Ferguson's physique is just outrageous. Like he looks
Crazy section, right?
yeah, it's incredible. So, I mean, what do you think about it? Would you love to see more of these guys going into the bodybuilding?
I'll be honest, man. If I was streamlined like that, like as a kid, I probably, that division to me it's attractive, right?
Yeah.
Not to sound like, I mean, it sounds like a little light, but I was a fan of Jeremy Buendia. I loved his like that taper. This Raymond guy, like I got to see him at the Olympia. He's been a little quiet since he won. I haven't really seen much of him. This whole year is just like kind of, man, this is like going to be the forgotten year of bodybuilding and fitness, whatever I think. This Andre guy's good. This Brandon Hendrickson I follow. I think he's phenomenal. I was hoping to see him recap. I was hoping to see him win at the Arnold. It was close.
Yeah.
But that Andre guy is just amazing.
Do you think Jay Cutler versus Ronnie Coleman is the #1 bodybuilding rivalry of all time? And if not, where do you think it ranks?
I think it's the greatest. And I'm not just people can knock on, okay, well, it's easy for Jay to say. And, I think people are generally receptive to what I say, right? Because I always give reason behind it. I hate to give you an answer and say, yeah, it was the greatest. Because, you built up, like, you had the greatest bodybuilder, arguably. Okay, I'm not going to say, people say Arnold was better or whatever, but physique-wise, he was the best ever, right? No one will ever top Ronnie Coleman as far as muscle definition, all that. And no Mr. Olympia had ever lost, right? So when you get second consistently, like 01 I was second, 02 I skipped, 3, 4, 5 I won in 6, and then one after that he quit. He came back in 07, but it really wasn't a rivalry because he wasn't landing second to me. No one had ever lost on stage, and no one had ever had that like kind of two mass monsters fighting back and forth, and nothing came between us in that amount of time. And when you have the posters being done for the Mr. Olympia that feature, myself and Ronnie as like the headliners, people are coming to see that show. And they were the Jay fans and they were the Ronnie fans. And then there were the people like, I just want to see a great show. So I think it was the greatest. I think it was, the sport was still building. Remember when I started competing at 99 at the Olympia, we really didn't have an expo with the Mr. Olympia. It was at Mandalay Bay. You probably don't remember this, but it wasn't until like 03 or 02, like they started building the expo around it. And then it started on pay-per-view television. So we had Hunter, Triple H headline. He was like announcing the show. If you remember the challenge rounds in like 04 and 05. So the thing was televised. I mean, it was on. You could have paid to watch it. It wasn't just like, join a webcast. So I was in those years where it was very, very, the platform was growing. And AMI bought the Olympia in like 2000, whatever it was, 2003. So it became like more of a national event. There was a lot of changes, but I think that made a good story. And I think the Ronnie Coleman battles were like set the standard for like the top two guys. Like I said, we could have seen Phil Heath, Kai Green, and you could have questioned if that was larger, but it didn't really last as long.
Yeah, for sure. And like when you say it's the biggest rivalry of all time, you go, oh, is it? And then you actually look back at the days of Arnold, but he never had that one rival that was just way above everyone else. He had Sergio. Some people say Lou Ferrigno, when Lou didn't even, in that Pumping Iron film, he didn't even finish second in the contest. So you can't really make that argument. And when you think through those eras, there's no two guys that were just going at each other like a Jay Cutler and Ronnie Coleman. It just didn't happen.
Yeah, and listen, the prize was a lot bigger, right? I mean, we were making a living at it. Like, remember, I was sponsored by Muscle Tech. He was sponsored by BSN. We had the two biggest contracts, the money was growing. He was giving out Escalades at the time at the Olympia. That was the biggest prize there alongside, the cash. And it was just, there was a lot of aura to the whole thing. And that's kind of why I think that it was the way it was as far as being the greatest rivalry ever. And I don't know if it will be duplicated because you need to have the consistency of two guys battling out. And right now, if I asked you as a reporter or a media person, who's going to be the top two at the Olympia this year? You can't even say, right? There's no sure. If you asked that many years ago, and when I met you, who was going to be top two at the Olympia? Oh, Jay Cutler, Ronnie Coleman, right? So it is the greatest. I mean, I don't think there's any argument there, and I think everyone would agree with that. That's in that era. It's a little disappointing with me, like Phil Heath and Kai Green never amounted to much further than what it did. It's disappointing a little bit because I was a fan at that point, and obviously I was behind Phil Heath. I competed against Kai Green. He was a threat to me towards the end of my career, and Phil Heath, was obviously came up, from the very bottom when I met him when he was a kid, and then he came up and ended up winning and beating me. But I loved the rivalry. I loved, when Ronnie Coleman, I exited from the stage in 2007, I didn't seem as motivated. I lost to Dexter in 08. I came back in 09, like my best ever. And then I knew I was stepping away in 11 when I tore my bicep and I lost, and then Phil Heath took over. But I knew I could only fight off Phil Heath for so long, especially in 10 when he pushed me. He was second. He was coming into his own. You come to that age in your early 30s where it's like, damn, like the physique just gets sharper by the minute, and Phil Heath was just coming on like a train, and he had the balance, like he had the symmetry, he had the proportions, and he had the, the aesthetics that a lot of us didn't have, and we saw it. And then when he won, I mean, I still think 2011 was his best Mr. Olympia physique ever.
I agree.
Although he did get bigger, we all got forced to get bigger. So nothing like to knock on him because I even got bigger than I should have. And the waist got bigger. And that's eventually what did him in, right, to losing to Roden, was just the overwhelming, I think he just pushed his body a little further than he probably needed to. But we all do that because we want to be better every year, and the critics want to see us better. But Phil was another guy, like, even though he came after me, like I used to say, like, when this kid hits it, he's going to be like unbeatable, and I think he could have won 10, it's just another one. I'm kind of like, damn, I just wish he would come back and just do it. Oh, he's 40 now, and it's not too late for him, but he could already won a couple extra by this, you know what I mean? He could have been going for whatever it is now, don't get so upset about the loss. We all lost, we lost, certain people lost in their career. And then usually sometimes it defeats people or they come back stronger. For me, I came back stronger, but I still think Phil Heath, if he decided to compete, would come in and he would rule the whole circuit.
For sure. You mentioned obviously you don't have children. Do you ever have any plans of wanting to have children or not really?
It's one of those things, man. Like if it happened, like I would be receptive for it. I was married for a long time and I got divorced at 38. Carrie was a huge backbone of my career, and I really couldn't have achieved all this without, that relationship, because she was with me since I was 16. And, when we split up, it was confusing for people because it seemed like the perfect relationship, but her and I we just kind of grew apart. We had different goals, and she was a nurse. She's still a nurse practitioner, and she's super supportive of what I do, and as I am with her. We have a lot of respect for each other, especially as we transition through life together. And I remember when we got divorced, it's like we're going to remain like best friends. And people say that kind of stuff, and then it's like, yeah, whatever, it doesn't happen. But like we stay in touch all the time, and she's using all the products now, and I always laugh and I say, your name's on the products, and she's really into training right now. So she went to the CrossFit, and like she's like doing like mudding runs and all these other things. And it's pretty cool to see that, and especially because we're the same age. So we're all trying to beat father time at the same time. But I never really, she actually miscarried in 2005. And then I won the Mr. Olympia and got really busy, and that life kind of took over. And it's kind of like be careful what you wish for kind of thing. And I started traveling more and more and more. So it was really hard for me because I knew if I had a child, I would have to stay home because that's how I am. Like I just mentioned, like my dogs are with me all the time. And, she was working, she was in a professional career. So it just never happened. And at this point, like as I'm getting older, I'm still buried in the business, man. It hasn't slowed down for me. And some people always ask, well, can Jay have a child? Of course I can. But I chose right now, to hold off on that, and not to never say never, but right now it's just not in my wheelhouse of like, this is what I want in life. And that may sound selfish, but like, listen, not everyone has the same aspirations, right? And obviously you have children, right? I mean, it takes time, and we just had this call. You're like, I got to keep the kids a little quiet so I can do this interview, right?
Yeah.
It's sometimes like that with the dogs. I'm like, shut the dogs up. Capone just ran over and his little bell was ringing, and usually I put him on my lap. But you need certain time to do things. But listen, not to say it wouldn't be a blessing. I grew up as an uncle. I was an uncle when I was 9 years old. My brothers and sisters all have young kids, and now of course they're all grown. But it's one of those things, I guess. It's like, for some people it's necessary. Other people it's like, yeah, if it happens, it happens. Yeah, but I was very upset. I cried when we lost, and
I bet.
And she was upset, and I'm like, I was like, man, I was really excited when she told me. It came like out of the blue, like shocking, right?
Yeah.
Because at that point, I was like, just had started training for, I think, the '05 Olympia, and you wouldn't think like, oh, I can't get anyone pregnant right now, from what I was taking or whatever, and just goes to show like that's not always the truth, I'm going to ask you a question. You sit there and you watch like the Fuad interview, and so do you research other people's interviews to learn how to be better with yours?
Yeah, with the Fuad interview, I actually spoke to Michael Galley yesterday, and I said, I watched the Fuad interview with Jay, and I watched a few other ones as well. And I said, I learned what I want to ask and what I don't want to ask, because I felt like I hear questions that I'm like, okay, for me, I don't really care as much about that sort of question. It doesn't really, but I've heard it before, you know what I mean? And you also got to account for people that have not heard interviews with you before, or not heard as many interviews, but you're quite obviously well known. So I want to ask questions that I suppose dig a bit deeper into who you are.
Your stuff. It's funny. I go through YouTube and I see Desktop Bodybuilding, whatever, and I've always like seen, the recognizable face. And I'm sorry, I don't remember meeting you in 2007, like at that
I don't
show.
expect you to.
But it's just cool. Do you remember the first high-profile person you ever interviewed?
The first high-profile person would have been Mil Sachev.
That was your first one. You said you were nervous as hell. You were shaking. And
yeah.
What do you think was the most? Because he's pretty responsive when you ask him questions, right?
Yep.
Out of all the questions you asked him, what do you think was the best question that you asked of him?
Honestly, I can't even remember. I interviewed him when I was probably only 17, so it was 13 years ago now. And the thing that really made me more nervous is Milos didn't understand my accent perfectly. So he would say, "Oh, sorry, Xavier, I don't understand what you're saying." And I was like, "Oh man," I'd repeat it, and then I'd have to cut those bits out where he's trying to understand me. But yeah, it was very nerve-wracking. I didn't have any issues with asking any particular questions. It was just the whole experience of it. And I suppose the thought of it that was playing over in my mind. And I interviewed a few other people afterwards, and I was still nervous, but not shaking as much. And then it became a thing where now it's, I'm sitting here talking to you, and it feels like I'm talking to like a friend almost. It's not scary. It's not intimidating.
That's comfortable for me, because I always want people to feel like, when I have a converse with people, like I try to and you'll notice a lot of pictures. If you ever see, I put my hand on people's shoulder, because I want them to understand like, hey, I'm connecting with what we're saying. I'm listening to what you're saying, because I never wanted to be that guy that like, you're having a conversation and I was like this, right? I was looking away, or I had something else in my mind. Although when I'm at these events, like someone's yelling, "Hey, Jay," and I'm like, "Hey, hey, whatever." I try to give that person, because they waited sometimes hours to see me. But I think it's really like, you've been doing it a long time. So just keep doing what you're doing. Keep spreading the positivity. I know you deal with everything, from the quarrelsome stuff to the interviews, and I did catch a little bit of your Dexter Jackson thing yesterday, so
that was crazy.
It's good. It's good you're covering everything, because it's what people want to see, right? In this day and age, especially what's going on in the last month, it's like, what are people looking to see, right? People are glued to the TV and the YouTube probably more than ever, so they're looking for quality content. So I hope you continue to find stuff that interests people.
For sure. I've got a lot of videos coming up. I've got an interview with Brandon Curry, got an interview that I just did with Sergio and a bunch of other guys as well. So I've got all that stuff coming out. But what advice, I suppose you probably haven't watched too much of my stuff, but what advice would you give me in terms of what I should cover in bodybuilding right now with no contests on? I've got a lot of ideas and whatnot about interviewing people and whatnot, but what advice would you give me?
I mean, listen, if you could do like mobile interviews, I don't, maybe you have, but if, I know you're from sitting in your home, your office or whatever, I would definitely make yourself mobile, come to the States and do some of these interviews, man.
Yeah.
Be awesome if we could have done an interview in my office. That's like everyone's dream. Your friend came here and he told you what the office looked like, right?
Yeah. He said it was amazing. He rang me and we was talking about it, and he goes, oh, Jay was, talking about this and showing us this. He's like, oh, like he was like, for him, he's been a big Jay Cutler fan for years too. So for him, it was like dream come true sort of stuff as well. So he was just like, he just said, oh, Xavier, it was awesome. It was such a cool experience. So hopefully when this whole thing is over, I'm able to come to the States. And like I said to you in a message a while ago, I don't know if you remember, but I spoke to Dave Belay, and Dave said, if you get your pro card and then come to America, he said, I'll film you in golds and we'll do an interview.
Man, we're gonna film you no matter what. So if you get the chance to come, and if you ever make it to Vegas, you're more than welcome to come check out this is the biggest shrine in professional bodybuilding right here. No one has this setup that I have. I mean, I wish you could see the other side of the screen here, but it's just like all the images and everything, But these are the most important bad boys right here. This is a Sandow trophy. So there's only 15 guys that have this trophy, right?
That's incredible. Are they all slightly different?
What's that?
Are they all slightly different?
They're all different. The new one's a lot bigger. So Brandon's is a lot bigger, and Phil, I think, got a couple that were bigger. But sometimes this whole barbell, it's different. It leans different. The figure's a different color. It's leaning back a little more on some of them, which is kind of cool. But I also have, my friend gave me some books on the history of. I don't know if you can see this, but this is like Eugene Sandow books. So that's like, I have that with it. And this is actually pretty cool. This is the Night of Champions ring. This was my first professional win. It says NOC on it. Can you see that?
That's cool. They should do that with another contest.
This is now New York Pro. So you'll see Sergio, he wears his New York Pro ring, right? That's my ring. This is the original case that it came in on stage. They gave this to me.
That's so cool.
It's never come out of this and never worn on my finger.
Oh, wow. You never worn it?
Never worn it. So, Wheeler has it. I think Chris Cormier has one. A lot of people won the NOC and got that ring. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. That was my first victory, 2000 Night of Champions.
Yeah, professional. That's incredible. That's so cool. Jay, I want to thank you so much for doing this interview. Do you have any final words? Anyone you want to thank? Anything you want to promote or anything like that? Because you've done, obviously, we've spent almost an hour and a half doing this, and it's just been such an honor. When I asked you, I said 5-10 minutes or whatever, but you said at the start of this, you said, I've got some time, so don't stress. I
listen, I appreciate all the fans out there around the world. I apologize for everyone that I had to cancel events due to all the craziness going on in the world right now, but I will make it up, and I will be back in Australia. I can't wait. Hopefully, if I come to your area, we can grab a workout, get it on film a little bit. But just to let everyone know, I'm available always. If on my social media, I do go on there and I do answer some questions. I get a million DMs, so I try to answer ones that are have some meaning to it. And I appreciate everyone that follows me on all those platforms. Make sure you check out JTV, and hopefully this interview goes viral, and hopefully we can get you on our channel when time is right. And keep healthy, and all the best to your family, and stay safe during these times. We'll be back to normal before we know it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jay. That's Jay Cutler, 4-time Mr. Olympia and the main ambassador of bodybuilding around the world. Thank you, Jay Cutler.
Appreciate it.